All right, we've got to talk about what now counts as being an alpha male in the modern American right of MAGA and Trump. You know, the traditional hegemonic masculinity, for lack of a better term, espoused by the right, it's rooted in stoicism and physically dominating other people, unwavering authority, uncritical loyalty. This is not merely a cultural ideal. It's become a political weapon. It's used to delegitimize people. You're a beta. Look at these beta males. We need to go back to a simpler and more manly time where men were men and women were women and this sort of stuff. I'm sure you've heard it. And not only does it flow from the orifices of those associated with Donald Trump, it also comes from the manosphere, the Andrew Taints, and others. Okay, you've heard this stuff a million times, the alpha men. But what I want to propose to you, and we've done it before, but I want to do it now in this sort of like Trump 2.0. When we look at the figures actually elevated to the status of alpha males within the MAGA movement, the entire premise of masculinity collapses under its own hypocrisy. I'm going to show you an example. There's this video that went kind of viral, I guess, which is meant to project toughness. And it's three prominent figures from the Trump administration. It's Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, J.D. Vance, the Vice President, and Stephen Miller, who I guess is like Deputy Policy Advisor or something like that. And it's set to aggressive music. I'm not going to play the music because I think it'll get the entire thing removed for copyright, but you can find the video if you want. But they have slow motion and they zoom in on J.D. Vance. And the idea here is to show that this is the embodiment of modern right-wing strength, alpha males, etc. If you're only listening today and not watching, imagine that you've got Hegseth, Vance, and Miller walking through what looks to be, I think this was Union Station in DC. And then it like zooms in and slows down and, it's all very, very manly. But really think about these guys for a second and look at the incredible trick that MAGA has pulled. You got Pete Hegseth, okay, promoted as the quintessential American man, a symbol of hard-worn traditional manliness. But his public profile is really highlighted by advancing baseless conspiracy theories, birther stuff, and all of this. And then as soon as it becomes inconvenient because you're working for Trump and you can't repeat all of the same stuff, he just shrivels into flaccid subservience. Is that really principled alpha leadership, or is it dishonest opportunism where he'll just say, what do my Fox employers want me to say? Okay. What does Trump want me to say? Okay. So that's Pete Hegseth. We then go to J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has positioned himself through his supposed story told in Hillbilly Elegy of his rough and tumble upbringing as this working class, heartland critic of coastal elites and their effeminate values. Now, that's not for JD. He's a man's man. But of course, superficially, it looks like JD wears eyeliner, which, by the way, I don't care. Wear makeup. I have no care, but it doesn't matter for your character. It doesn't matter for your capabilities. But in a political movement that demonizes deviating from gender norms and targeting the LGBTQ community and all of it, one of your main alphas is a guy who's increasingly wearing more and more eyeliner, but also, quite frankly, has not been completely forthright in the story of his upbringing, which turns out was much more middle class than he has led us to believe. And so it's another example of when the standards are only applied to others, but not to your movement's most favored sons. Okay, and then we have Stephen Miller. And again, listen, guys, I'm not a tall guy, okay? Stephen Miller's short, and he's bald, and he is not physically imposing. And by their standards, I don't give a shit. If he's got good ideas, cool. If he has bad ideas, well, then we don't like him. But in the cultural framework of masculinity that these MAGA people have created, this is not a guy who meets the standards of alpha male. And then what really ties them all together in maybe the most beta behavior of all, like, Hegseth did serve in the military and JD's got his eyeliner and Miller's bald and short. Okay, fine. But what unifies them is something that is not considered masculine in this framework, which is that they are completely subservient to one person. And that one guy is obese and covers his entire body in makeup, different parts of his body for different reasons, doesn't exercise, and is quite frankly the image of what the prototypical alpha male seeks not to look like. And so you've got these people around Trump worshiping a guy under the premise that he's alpha and they're alpha. And in reality, it's all kind of bootlicking intellectual surrender. And so where we land is that in this political culture, there's a lot of people in glass houses throwing stones about behave like a man and provide for your family and don't compromise your principles and all of this stuff. And they aren't exhibiting courageous dissent. They are not exhibiting principled autonomy. They are demonstrating a willingness to lay down and to let Trump walk all over you, period, no matter what your espoused values were, all in the service of one guy who's the color of a traffic cone. And so the dominant men in this ecosystem end up being the ones who command the most profound level of fealty from their subordinates at the end of the day. And instead of being alpha for having strength, they want to be seen as alpha for essentially being vassals. And the alpha male has been redefined as the man most willing to suck up to the right people. This was not the alpha stuff we were led to believe they would bring. And I'll be honest, any MAGAs out there, if you identify this and you find it quite frankly pathetic, good for you. You're welcome here. As I've said before, join us. Even if you're conservative, we welcome those who are against corruption to join us in this fight. If you are sick and tired of those who want to tell you how you should live and how others should live, and that they are the standard for masculinity, if you're sick of them not even living by what they espouse, come join us. You're welcome here, even if we don't agree on what the top tax rate should be. There is, I think, a movement here to work together with people who are just quite frankly sick of this crap.